Hey everybody, Dr. Dan here. I hope you're all well. Welcome to week 7. This is chapter 6. It's exciting because we're talking about the Roman world this week, and around the same time frame as Greece, a tiny little bit later as far as the Roman Republic goes, but certainly in that same time period. So we're still in the real ancient time frame where we haven't even come into the Common Era yet. So we're going to soon in this chapter. So we're looking at a map here, and I know on this video platform I use that my pointer doesn't show up, but the big yellow thing that looks like a boot in the middle of the screen, that is modern day Italy, and Rome is in modern day Italy, and Rome back then was the seat of the Roman Empire. So we're covering from about 700 BC to about 500, the year 500 Common Era. So if it's 2022 now, so 500, so 1500 or so years ago. So quite a long time ago. So Italy, the boot, that's where Rome is, and at the end of the boot, the little island is Sicily, the little thing that it looks like the boot is kicking. You all know that, but I wanted to make sure you knew where we were at in the world. And then also last week we talked about Greece, which is just to your right, I guess, to the heel of the boot as you're looking at this map, again, in the Mediterranean. And like Greece, Rome was very influential to our society today, to Western society. So we're going to talk about those parallels, and you have an assignment this week, and the assignment is going to ask you about those parallels. So I'll try to talk about that at the end of the video. So just to kind of go through the biggies, we talked about geography and topography, where it's at. So Italy is the boot. As I said, it's in the Mediterranean region. It has a variety of microclimates, if you will, from the south all the way to the north. There's mountains in the north, and obviously the rest of it's surrounded by water. And there's two basic periods when you look at the chronology of Roman history that historians look at. And well, there's actually a lot more, but in this class, a survey class, there's two for us. And one of them is the Roman Empire, which is the beginning, all right, of Roman history that we're talking about, or the Roman Republic. I'm sorry. The first one's the Roman Republic, which is the beginning of what we're talking about. And that goes until about 100 BC. And then that's followed by the Roman Empire. So what's the difference between a republic and an empire? Today, if you're living in the U.S. and you're watching this from the U.S., then you're basically living in a republic. You're living in an area that might have separate states, but more importantly is some sort of representative government, in that all the citizens allegedly have a say in how the government works. That's a republic, and an empire is different. An empire is something, it's a society with an emperor, like a king. So that's an empire. And in Rome's case, it goes from democracy or from representative government to empire. All right. And we also saw that in Greece. If you remember our reading from Greece last week, we saw that the nascent beginnings of democracy with Solon, and then we saw that change after Philip and Alexander the Great, but I'm getting off the subject. So getting back to Rome again, we had the Republic and the Empire. And as far as like the sources and problems of Roman history, the problems of these histories are all the same. They're written by aristocrats, written by, basically rich white guys, I guess, or whoever was in charge. And they therefore are missing the voice of women, and they're missing the voice of those who were enslaved, and they're missing the voice of regular working class people, regular citizens like you and me. So there's that part, always the same problem. And again, like Greece, it's always, it's a little, well, it's not really, but it could be difficult to figure out what's myth and what's reality when we're looking at early Roman history. You'll read about Romulus and Remus, and how Romulus creates Rome, and the whole Romulus and Remus story is weird, I think. But anyway, I mean, they were raised by a she-wolf, and it's whatever. So you'll read about that. That's the way that Romans think that Rome started. And so then you'll read about the early republic. And so, on this theme of parallels, one of the things you're going to read about is the Roman Senate. So there's a parallel between Rome and Western culture, or at least Western democracy, is that, Rome has had a Senate, and so does the U.S., for example. So there's a parallel. You can write about that in your essay. Now you have to put it in context. But I'll talk about that later. But there's a big hint for you. So republic is this representative government, and it's working fine. I mean, Rome is expanding like crazy. I mean, they take Sicily, they get precious metals all over the place. They go into Spain. They really encapsulate this whole area of the Mediterranean, all around the Mediterranean. The whole deal. The big navy, the big army. They're great road builders. They're great architects. Obviously, they build roads. They go trade. They conquer, and then anyone who's conquered, they offer them citizenship. So they try to keep everybody vanquished, if you will. They try to keep everybody on their side in pro-Rome. And it was a big deal to be a Roman citizen. At least, that's what people thought. It's like, hey, I'm a Roman citizen, so therefore I have some protections, like some protections from law, which would be another parallel between what you're reading and today, that there was a legal system with codified laws in Rome. So there's another hint for your essay. And so Rome does have a lot of parallels and a lot of ties to today, and that's to today in Western history, modern Western history. So that's why it's important. And then maybe the real biggie is religion. So in the Roman Republic, the earlier phase, we're really talking about pagan religion, in the sense that Romans were polytheistic and believed in a number of different gods, very similar to Greek gods, many of them based on Greek gods. And that's in the early Republic. But what's going to happen is, as Rome expands and starts to fall apart, right around during this time between Empire and Republic, we're going to see sort of the roots of Christianity take effect. So that's another huge deal as far as Roman history goes, is that Christianity in a big way starts there. And we'll get to that just in a little bit. So early Republic, they're polytheistic, and Rome is expanding like crazy. And you're going to read about something called the Punic Wars, which are basically a war between Rome and Carthage. And Carthage is actually in northern Africa. If you remember, like where Egypt was when we studied that, it's kind of near there, only west of there. So the Punic Wars result in Rome getting this huge influx of territory. Like whatever they didn't have around the Mediterranean before, they did after the Punic War. So the Republic gets really big, and it gets to be hard to manage. And so that's one of the first things that happens when it gets too big. And I think that's the case with any empire, any superpower. You get too many possessions under your control, and you can't control them anymore. And that's certainly the case with the Roman Republic, because after the Punic Wars, all of this territory comes underneath Rome's thumb, and politicians are trying to, grab power by grabbing regions. And so there's a lot of infighting. And then finally, there are civil wars, actually, like between politicians. So politicians were powerful enough then that they would have their own armies. So you'll read about like Sulla and the first Roman Civil War, and it was really between politicians. And then you'll read the same thing when Julius Caesar comes along, and there's a politician, a warrior, very famous guy. And so there's infighting between Caesar and Pompey. And so this is between Roman politicians. And finally, Caesar declares himself dictator for life after his civil war, and he gets assassinated because there's other powerful senators that don't like that stuff. So they kill Caesar. As a side note, the Caesar salad has nothing to do with Julius Caesar. I looked it up. Okay, so there's that. It actually is named for a restaurant I'm not even going to get into that. But anyway, if you want to know more about the Caesar salad, let me know. Sorry, I got off track. So Julius Caesar comes along. There's infighting. There's civil war. Caesar gets killed. He gets assassinated, and his heir, whose name is Octavian, takes over. Octavian changes his name to Augustus, and he is the first emperor. So right at that period of time, I don't know the exact year off the top of my head, but I think around 27, 28, 27, 30 BC is when this happens, right around in there. And anyway, so Augustus becomes the first emperor of Rome, and at around that same period of time, you see Augustus fade. You see other leaders come in. You go through people like Claudius. You'll read about Nero, who eventually, well, he was nuts anyway, committed suicide. And then you'll read more leadership changes in the chapter. I'm at about section 610 right now. You'll read about the 3rd century crisis, and then you'll read about Constantine also, who was really the first leader, the first like really important guy to convert to Christianity. I think at the time that he converted, only like 10% of the population of Rome was Christian, because it was really looked upon as sort of a weird, threatening religion, because Romans were polytheistic, and really only the privileged could really communicate with the gods. But Christianity, flattens everything, and gender becomes less important, and class becomes less important, because anybody can practice Christianity on their own. And generally authorities don't like that, so they didn't like that religion at first. And I can't get into all of Christianity and the crucifixion and Pontius Pilate in Rome, but obviously there's a rich history of Christianity in Rome together. Constantine, as I said, is the first leader to convert. And the other thing he does is he moves the capital of Rome to Byzantine, which becomes Constantinople, which is actually Istanbul today in Turkey. So now there's like an Eastern Roman Empire and a Western Roman Empire after Constantine, and then things really start to fall apart, especially in the West. So the Western Roman Empire is attacked by Goths. So there really are Goths. I mean, my son is sort of Gothy. And so they take over and sack Rome, and the Western Empire starts to fall apart. But it really doesn't. I mean, most of the history books tell you like, hey, one day there was a Roman Empire and the next day there wasn't. But as we get into the next chapter, we see that it really survives in a lot of ways, and a lot of the cultural and social stuff that came out of Rome really survives also as we get into like early Europe, which we're going to do next week. So there's that. Sorry for the long lecture, but the other thing I want to bring up is just the notion of this essay assignment this week. So this week, the essay assignment asks you to think about parallels, and I'm trying to think here. Let me see if I have a copy of it that I can read. Oh, bear with me. So the essay assignment this week, it gives you the choice of 4 different topics, if you will. One of them is politics, one is laws or legal system, one is religion, and one is cultural slash social. And what you need to do on the essay is pick 3 of those 4 topics. And all you have to do is identify a parallel between that topic and modern Western society, like today in the US or today in Western Europe, for example. So, for example, you might say, I just read about the legal system in Rome. Well, you really didn't in the chapter, but you read about something called the 12 Tables. So if you read that, they had a legal system. So you can say, Rome had a legal system, and modern Western democracies typically have a legal system. So there's a parallel. So there's your answer for that one. But don't just say, my topic is law, and there's parallels because Rome had a legal system and modern Western society had a legal system. You got to put it in context. So in other words, just say Rome had a legal system as evidenced by the laws in the 12 Tables, and then cite it like you always do with a citation with the author's name and the page or the section number. That would be a parallel. So certainly the Senate would be a parallel. Certainly the flourishing of culture and the arts, they talk about that in section 6.9. That would be a parallel between societies, between today, like in Western civilization, and then. They're both very much into the arts and entertainment culture. Class base, gender differences. So there's a number of things you can pick out. But again, don't just make it a one sentence saying that, hey, we both had senates. I mean, don't do that. At least expand it, write a sentence or two. Maybe you could do something like how they were different and how they were the same, whatever. It doesn't have to be very long. But that's the essay this week. The instructions are up on Blackboard. If you have any questions about it, just text me or shoot me an email. But don't overthink it. It should be fun. And it's a good assignment for this class. There's so many more probably interesting things we could have looked at, but we have so little time, and I think it's important that we kind of take an overview of that Roman culture and say, hey, here are some things I can relate to today, so we can kind of connect the past with the present. So that's the idea. Hopefully you'll enjoy the assignment. If you have any questions, let me know. As always, I'm so sorry this went so long. Have a great day. Stay safe. Bye-bye.